Hey guys, so I know I haven't done one of these in a while, and this isn't going to be a personal update because there's some stuff I have to keep under my hat. But um, I did have a conversation. Well, let me rephrase that. I tried to have a conversation with somebody online today, um, and as I was saying, I've got to stop trying to genuinely engage with people who argue in bad faith. But it made me think about, my past career as a zookeeper and animal care advocate, which is something I'm still very passionate about and something I still do with my limited financial resources and my free time. And so I just wanted to take a minute to give you guys just kind of a little overview of why zoos and aquariums are important. So for my own credentials, I spent 3 years doing field research on small mammal populations in a successional wetland. I have 3 degrees in the sciences, primarily focused on evolutionary psychology, behavior, animal behavior, and biology. Um, I started 2 PhDs, one in psychology, one in biology, neither of which I finished because I couldn't get funding for my dissertation, which is the whole thing. But I also spent 6 years managing a full service veterinary hospital. Um, and of course, I spent 13 years working at accredited zoos and aquarium. Well, no, actually, no, never an aquarium, but different AZA accredited facilities, as well as some sanctuaries. And so I just want to tell you a little bit about what they do and why they're important. So the AZA is the Association of Zoos and Aquariums in the United States, and it sets the standards of animal care. It is always changing, always updating. The more we learn, the more research we do, the better care we can give these animals. And I'm not here to say that these are perfect institutions. There are always going to be imperfections in any field. But I am going to tell you that in my experience and the experience of the many, many animal care professionals that I know, the animals in these institutions, accredited, I'm talking about, these animals receive better medical and dietary care than most humans I know. And more importantly, well, maybe not more importantly, I take that back, but maybe equally important is that they are serving as ambassadors for their species because sadly, I wish they weren't necessary, but they are. They're necessary in order to keep a genetically diverse bloodline in the event that animals go extinct in the wild. That is the main thing here. That's what we call a species survival plan. And any zoo you go to, they will say, with various animals, whether they're vulnerable, least concern, endangered, critically endangered, they'll have their status, and they're going to tell you if they're on a species survival plan, which I always kind of liken to ancestry.com meets match.com, right? So this is something that's coordinated internationally, and the plan of an SSP, the purpose is to keep a genetically diverse bloodline in captivity in the event that an animal species goes extinct in the wild, which sadly does happen. Hmm. In 2002, when it was 2000, it was between 2000 and 2002, a study came out that projected that tigers would be extinct in the wild by the year 2005. Now, the main reason that tigers are not is because of the conservation work of zoos across the world, coordinating care and effort to keep this species from going extinct. And that's deforestation, poaching. There are so many factors that contribute, but they're all man-made factors. Um, and so that's true for so many species. If we look at radiated tortoises, they're about yay big, right? And they're absolutely beautiful. They have these black shells with these starburst patterns. That's where they get their name radiated. They look like anyway. Um, they don't reproduce until they're about 25 years. They're not sexually mature until they're about that. And they're so popular in the pet trade because of their shell that they have been snatched up out of the wild faster than they can reproduce. So in the last 20 years, they have become critically endangered, on the brink of extinction in the wild. And if it were not for captive collections of these animals, they are likely to be wiped out. Now, it's sad that we need that. I'm not saying that is a problem. That is a human problem. And I would love to see that trade ended. But look, the pet trade's not going anywhere. That's just reality. It's sad and it's hateful, and I'm so angry about it. but it's not going anywhere. Let's be real. Too many people have too much to lose. People often confuse loving a thing with needing to possess it. And so these people get exotic pets that they don't know how to care for. They spend thousands of dollars on them. They dump them, they become invasive species. There's just so many problems with the pet trade, and it's wiping out populations. So we have our SSP. So it's addressing all these different problems. And when an SSP is very successful, you can get a reintroduction plan. Now, reintroduction plans are not as common, and the reason being is that you have to be able to ensure the safety of the animal. So there's no point in reintroducing to the wild an animal born in captivity that's on a vulnerable, endangered, critically endangered list. If you're going to release it and 2 weeks later, it's going to get poached. So oftentimes we don't reintroduce animals because we cannot guarantee the safety of the animal. And that's just reality. Again, so much of this is just reality. I wish we lived in a perfect world. I wish we lived in a better world. I wish we could legislate things, but I'm not going to sit on my hands waiting for legislation to happen that's not probably coming. And if it does, it's going to be too late for a lot of animals. So, that being said, zoos do other important work as well. Education. One of the main things that people are like, oh, zoos are for entertainment. It's not like it was if you were my age or a little older when we went and it was all concrete everywhere and they were in little cages with metal bars. It's not like that anymore. Zoos make their best effort to replicate the natural environment of the animal. They get enrichment, so stimulation, all their different senses. They get training. These animals get really good care by and large. And gosh, it's just, I wish we didn't need them, but we do, because not only are we doing what's right for the animal, but humans need to have these interactions. They need to see them because, and I've said this before, you can read about something in a book, you can see it in TV. It is not the same as having an interpersonal, one-on-one, in real time, real life experience. And when you see something, especially kids internalize things in a way adults don't. But it's so important for them to come and see and learn about these animals because they need to internalize the caring and the passion and the empathy. And so much of what zoos do and aquariums is, what can you do in your day-to-day life to help ensure the continued survival of these species? That's a lot of the messaging, and it's just, it has to be done. It has to be done, and we do it in the best, most caring way we can. The animals, I've seen stuff, people out there going, oh, the animals are all on antipsychotics. The animals are poked with a stick to. No, I'm not saying like there are not bad keepers. There are bad everybody of their job. I have personally never really interacted with a bad keeper. I've heard one story in my entire career from somebody I knew, and that person got fired. So, I will say in my both personal and professional experiences, sanctuaries and nonprofits, I have seen way more cruelty, callousness, and exploitation of animals than I have ever seen at an accredited zoo. I was at one place local to where I am now, which I won't say, and I was with a vet at the time, and I did this behind the scenes, went to just check it out, and they proclaim to be about conservation and rehabbing animals. They're not. And like many, many nonprofits and sanctuaries, it's a front for a private collection because it's against the law in most of the United States to own a lot of these exotic species. So people get these nonprofits set up, and then they have their private collection. They're closed to the public a lot of the time. So they're not doing education. They are in no way involved with any conservation programs. And the animals are kept in appalling condition. And this one I went behind the scenes, and it was so horrendous. I don't even have words. The animals were kept in the tiniest, filthiest little enclosures. And the girl who was showing me around, she was like the daughter of the people who owned this nonprofit, this conservation program. It's supposed to be about education. No, she was showing me around and she's walking around with a bowl of like processed mac and cheese and she was like eating it and then feeding it to the animals on her fork. Animal to animal. Like, first of all, they shouldn't be eating that. Second of all, cross contamination. I mean, there's so much wrong with it. And then I was like looking around, and it's like, wow, that animal's covered in tumors. That one's covered in lesions. That one, and this is, they have a huge reputation where I live for being, involved with conservation. They're not. It's propaganda bullshit. They rent them out for commercials. You want to talk about exploitation? That's what a lot of sanctuaries and nonprofits do. It's really disgusting. They killed an animal by accident right in front of my fucking face. I could not believe it. I could not believe it. There was so much wrong with this place. It's just, when you're going to do anything, if you're going to a zoo, if you're going to a sanctuary, if you're going on vacation, you're like down in the Caribbean and I'm going to go to Monkey Village where the monkeys climb on you. Do your due diligence. That's all. Do your due diligence. Research it. Learn. This is important for everything. Is learn how to find reputable source material, because what I find in so many things, not just animal stuff, in so many things, people are just looking for confirmation bias. They want to know about stuff they already agree with. And I mean, I had somebody to tell me today, well, there's only one place in the entire United States that reintroduces animals. And I'm like, no, that's not true. Like, I literally worked at one, and it's not the one you're talking about. So, animal stuff it's really complicated, and it's a hard issue. And I know a lot of people, they don't want to think about it. They don't want to talk about it. They like eating meat. They like, their dairy. I don't try and attack people because you cannot motivate somebody to change from a place of defensiveness. If I come at you and you get your dander up, you're not going to hear what I have to say. I have changed more people's minds with just education and information about, what happens to the baby male when the cow gives birth. If it's a male, what happens to that baby? What happens to the roosters that, not the hen? What happens, in the big agriculture industry, which to me is much more of a problem than something like a zoo. Um, so, think about what you're doing. If you have questions, ask me. But, zoos don't even just educate on animals. We educate on all kinds of environmental conservation issues, palm oil and sustainability with one-use plastics, all that stuff. There's a lot of things we talk about. And so these institutions are vital for education and touching people and really informing them. And they often are operating at a deficit. They're massively underfunded. It was just, unfortunately, the main reason I got out of that field is I just couldn't survive on, no pay anymore. Well, I mean, I got paid, but minimum wage. I couldn't survive on it anymore. We're talking about somebody with 3 college degrees doing a job that could literally kill you every single day and was incredibly physically demanding and emotionally stressful and making minimum wage. And it's just ridiculous. So, I'm sorry to say it's a dying industry, but it is, because financially it's just, there's no funding. So they are important. And I really encourage you to look into animal welfare, veganism, vegetarianism, all of those things. I'm happy to answer questions, but I encourage everybody to at least take steps towards a more plant-based lifestyle. And sorry, I took an amitriptyline last night, so I'm not firing on all 4 cylinders. So this is probably a little all over the place, but my thoughts have been a little scattered. So anyway, just want to get into all that. And just bear in mind, one place I worked, we were able to successfully breed a species that is technically extinct in the wild. So they're alive and well because of that. We can't put them back out. There's no population for them to go into. They're going to get picked off if we do, but at least they're alive. And what a great way to segue into that conversation with people, right? Is, when you're walking around and there's guests looking at these animals, and you can say, you know what? This is what happens. This is what happens when we exploit animals. This is what happens when we over farm. This is what happens when we take over environments and pick off the apex predators. This is what happens when we do all these different things. And just to enlighten people as to those situations. So anyway, I'm gonna wrap this up because like I said, I'm rambling, but I just wanted to put some of that out there, and I'm happy to answer questions. So ask me questions about animal stuff.